gals and guys. This is Michael Ferrari of Cinema to Meep and the Last American Video Store podcast. Welcome to the 23rd bonus Patreon episode. And joining me today, I haven't heard from you in a while, is Erik Threlfall. Welcome back, Erik.
Thank you very much.
That's right, Erik.
Looking forward to visiting the police academy. Not once, not twice, but 7 times.
Lucky 7. Or is it lucky? Or unlucky? We'll see. So Erik is from the Hysteria Continues podcast. And what have you been doing lately, Erik? What's going on over there in sunny England?
Okay, yes. Well, I'm from Dublin, but I've been isolating in England for the last 5 months. So, just my job fortunately allows me to work from home. So there's been no change there, really. Just no commute and sitting in my boxer shorts all day, every day. It's the dream.
That is the dream. The dream is no pants, as everyone probably knows by now for me. So yeah. I'm glad you're living the no pants lifestyle in sunny England, where you can go to the beaches and enjoy.
Don't know about that. But...
Oh yeah, that's right. Thank you for joining me on this one. It's fun. We haven't talked about. I can't remember what the last podcast we did together was, but I'm sure it was about movies.
Was it? It wasn't Jaws. No, we've done one since Jaws, haven't we?
I feel like we have. I think the Karate Kid, maybe.
Yes, that is probably it.
Yeah, the Karate Kid movies. So now we're covering the just as important franchise, the Police Academy movies. Why the Police Academy movies? What do you think why did we ended up on this one, Erik?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking myself. I ask myself that every day, but
I think basically because it's an 80s franchise, and that's its main appeal for me.
That's a good reason. Why not? That's what I said. I've always had a fondness for the Police Academy movies. I'm not sure how well they hold up for most of our listeners, but I think for us, we definitely grew up with them. You know, they were a genre or a series that was born in the 80s. Some say died in the 80s. And so we kind of grew up along with them. There was like one virtually every year in the 80s, at least starting in 1984. And this is at the height of like movie going for me. And like it was 84 and I'm going to the movies all the time by this point. So it was, what's playing? A Police Academy movie. Gotta go see it. Or I'm not sure how did they make it out over there? Were they theatrical films or on video?
I certainly know the first 4 were theatrical. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure 5, 6, 7 didn't make it into cinemas over here. But for me personally, I didn't see any of them in the cinema. They're all VHS rentals for me.
So they're very much a VHS staple. They were always at the video store. Any video store you went into in any conceivable country, you would see a Police Academy movie. Whether it's one of the sequels or the original film, it was always on the shelves there. So it was a very reliable kind of source of comedy, and certainly a very popular series of that time period. So if you haven't seen the Police Academy movies, there are definitely a lot of them for you to check out.
There are.
There's no shortage of them. So we'll get into each film. Is there something you want to talk about recently seen, or do you just kind of want to go into the movies?
My recently seen has been quite limited to what we've been covering on the Hysteria Continues.
Yeah, what have you been covering there?
Let me think. What have we been covering? Oh, we recently did the 1985 Giallo Nothing Underneath, which is from it's a mid-80s models, big hair, shoulder pads, Giallo, and it's a ton of fun. It has Donald Pleasance in it with a very strange accent. He's the marquee name, although he's not the lead as such. Have you seen that one before?
No. I'm just wondering, was there actually anything underneath, or?
Well, there's a couple of scenes where it lives up to its title, yes.
Oh,
but for the most part, it's kind of doing the blood and black lace type giallo, where models are being stalked and killed, but it's updated it to 1985, so you get Murray Head singing One Night in Bangkok on the soundtrack, and a couple of years too late for 1985, but Gloria Gaynor's I Am What I Am is also a popular song on the soundtrack. What else have we been covering? We've been doing a lot of commentaries for, I don't know which, there's only one I know I can mention, and that's Grave Robbers, which is a Mexican horror film from 1990. Mm-hmm. We've done a commentary for that for Vinegar Syndrome, and we've got a couple of more for them to record yet, and we've done a few for 88 Films as well in the UK, but I better not say anything because I'm not sure if they've been announced yet. And what else have we been watching for the podcast? I can't remember for the life of me. It's just like they've all gone out of my head, but things like Invisible Maniac,
classic,
1990. Yeah, have you seen that one?
I have, but it's been a long time. I don't remember much about it.
Yeah, it kind of mixes a slasher movie with Police Academy style humor,
mm-hmm.
And it's more successful than I would have anticipated. I'd never seen it before.
Mm-hmm.
It's a favorite of Nathan on the podcast, who likes all these kind of low rent straight to video movies from the 80s and 90s.
Mm-hmm.
But I was pleasantly surprised that it kind of works as a coherent movie. I was expecting it to be dreadful, but
right.
It was half decent. Yeah. So what have you been? You've been watching lots, I know.
Oh,
apart from 7 Police Academy movies.
I'm always watching lots, so there's no shortage of movies. Thinking about it recently, let's see. I watched a new movie called Yes, God, Yes. A story about a young girl at a Catholic camp, like a summer camp for Catholic kids. And it was from the writer of the breakout indie film Obvious Child, and she had directed this one as well as written it, and I liked it. It was a good little indie film about this teenage girl, so it's kind of like a teen movie, who has a sexual awakening at Catholic camp. And of course with religion, she's always feeling guilty, and a lot of the hypocrisy of Catholicism plays in here, but I think it's done in a kind of a fun way. Not too. It's definitely very much an indie movie, very focused on the subject, kind of thing, but done in a fun way. And I really liked it. I really liked the performances. The lead girl was the Nancy from Stranger Things, that show. I remember liking Stranger Things, but not being that super bowled over by it as a show. But I thought she was good here, and there was other people who kind of pop up in the show and in the movie, and they all give good performances. But it's like 78 minutes. It's like a really short, kind of to the point indie comedy, and I ended up really enjoying it. Let's see what else I watched. A lot of like family movie nights. We watched the first 2 Mighty Ducks movies.
I don't think I've ever seen any of the Mighty Ducks movies.
Yeah, they're kind of fun and charming and very harmless kind of entertainment, and I enjoyed it. I also watched Hitchhike to Hell. Not with the kids, but I've always liked that bonkers movie. It's from the director of Malibu High, which is a crazy, crazy movie that I enjoy. This one is maybe a little less crazy, but I enjoy it. It's about a serial killer who picks up women. He's like in a van, so it's a van in the 70s in California, and of course it's going to lead to some murder. And it's definitely much a movie of its time. Very 70s, very low budge feeling, but I like it. I think it's a good little one from that era. We also did like a family movie night of Batman Returns, which I'm not a fan of superhero movies, as everyone knows on this podcast. It's not my thing, but I did really enjoy Batman Returns. It's certainly the horniest Batman movie of all of them, which I was kind of surprised by on this viewing, watching with my kids.
With Michelle Pfeiffer in her catsuit.
There's lots of lots of innuendo kind of in the screenplay, which was written by Daniel Waters. He was one of the writers on the screenplay. The guy who wrote Heathers, and there's lots of Yeah, a lot of humor that's kind of in there that you don't quite maybe catch in the first viewing. That's kind of a little risque, and a lot of innuendo between her character and the Penguin character. You forget how much he comes on to her, and that movie is kind of funny. I just maybe because I've watched all those some of those recent Batman movies, which are devoid of any kind of sexuality and personality, and so it's seeing this movie with a lot of personality and sexuality, and it was kind of a little bit jarring and fun. And it's certainly a movie with no shortage of characters in it, and I like that.
I haven't seen that one since 1992. I went to see it in the cinema, and to be honest, I can't remember a thing. I remember I was a bit bored in the cinema, but that was almost 30 years ago. My opinions can change, but like you, I'm not a huge fan of the superhero universe and movies, particularly Batman. I find a bit drab and dreary, apart from I grew up on like a lot of people I suppose on the 60s TV show, which kind of gave me a skewed version of what Batman was, and I just found that any of the movie interpretations didn't deliver for me because I was so fond of that 60s version.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that, and they were like a departure from a little bit from that, but I don't know. This one, for some reason, maybe time has been kinder to it. It held up for me, and actually exceeded my expectations. I don't really like those movies, so I like that one. Mikey came out on Blu-ray. The 1992 Brian Bonsall from Family Ties as a killer kid movie. Beautiful, beautiful Blu-ray from MVD. Dived right into the extras, lots of extras in there. A great Blu-ray. And
is Brian Bonsall on the extras?
He actually is. It's like a Skype interview with him, and as everything is now Skype, right? And it's a very long interview. There's I guess a documentary is like feature length. So there are lots of interviews with like the people behind the scenes of the movie, including Brian Bonsall. So everything you want to know about Mikey, but we're afraid to ask, is included on this disc. And I've always been a fan of this film, and I think it's silly. It's like that premise of a killer kid is always a silly premise for me, but for me this one always stuck out because it's kind of over the top and big and yeah, just the idea of the kid from Family Ties killing people is hilarious to me. And so that one, no shortage of entertainment value for me. So great to see it on Blu-ray. And then Split Second, also on Blu-ray from MVD in their Retro Rewind collection. And, with this kind of retro packaging, which is kind of cool to see.
Oh, yeah.
This one, of course, the Rutger Hauer sci-fi film, also from the early 90s. And I've been a fan of this movie for a while. I just feel like, it was one of those movies that came and went, and I think it's developed a cult audience over the years, which is great. I'm glad to hear it. And I've always really enjoyed it. It's a movie actually shot over there in England.
It's that Tony Malum who did The Burning.
I believe so.
I haven't seen that one yet, but I do believe it's got a UK Blu-ray release recently as well. So.
Yeah, and the MVD Rewind Blu-ray is stacked with bonus features. They really go all out on these bonus features. So they get filmmakers, producers, stars, actors in the movie, all talking about the film, and another very long interview. Really well done, I would say. I think both of these discs, and I miss Rutger Hauer on screen. He passed away sadly last year, but yeah, his movies live on. We get to watch them that way. And also the last one I saw recently, I'll be brief, is A Different Story, the 1978 comedy drama with Perry King and Meg Foster about a man who recently was broken up by his boyfriend, who moves in with Meg Foster, who happens to be a lesbian, and they kind of develop a very close relationship, which leads to love, and it goes into some interesting and surprising places. Semi-controversial film because of its portrayal of these gay characters. I've never had an issue with that. For me personally, I feel like it's a love story first and foremost. and I've always liked that the movie kind of treated its characters so carefully and had its heart in its sleeve, and then portrayed these worlds that you didn't quite see in film that much, which was nice. And I think A Different Story, which has been cut on home video, this is in the full R-rated version. So it's great to see that preserved on this new Blu-ray from Scorpion releasing. So I'm a fan of this movie, and I'm glad it's on Blu-ray, A Different Story. Have you ever heard of that one?
I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it, though. What year is it from?
78.
Okay.
And it does feel like a 70s California movie, but not in a way that feels terribly dated, which, again, a word I don't believe in. I think a movie should feel like of its time. But, yeah, I like that it captures that time period in a nice, cozy way. Because it's a movie about people basically living together. And then so you see a lot of their lifestyle in their apartment and their house and then the shenanigans that ensue with things go. Have fun with that one. Yeah, so there was been an interesting release and onslaught of Blu-rays coming out lately, and it's nice to live in this era where things are coming, and you and the Hysteria Continues guys are a part of that with doing commentaries on these Blu-rays, so that's great.
Not all of them are going to be million sellers, though. Let's just say that. One thing I did see, and this is the perfect place to talk about it, what I forgot to mention, is I was watching the Lifetime channel, and they had a film on called A Tale of Two Coreys, which is a dramatization of the sort of lives of Corey Feldman and Corey Haim. Right. And as you can kind of expect, it's cheesy in places and quite moving and very well done in others. Now, one of the executive producers on this film is Corey Feldman, so you can expect it to be slightly one-sided or slightly, a very angelic portrayal of Corey Feldman in the film, but I didn't mind that. The first half focuses on them as kids, and in the opening scene we see Corey Haim on the set of Lucas, which apparently is where sort of the unsavory incident happened that sort of, plagued him and troubled him for the rest of his life. But the first half of the film with them as sort of 13, 14-year-olds is the cheesier half of the film. The kids don't look anything like the two Coreys, and it's all very it's quite episodic. It reminded me of the Queen movie Bohemian Rhapsody that came out a few years ago, where things are just moving so rapidly, and 1 minute they're a garage band, and then suddenly they're a stadium rock band, in the blink of an eye. And this is kind of what happens in this first half of the film. In the second half, it shows them grown up, and the two actors that they have playing the grown up versions of Feldman and Haim actually look quite like the counterparts. And it's kind of more effective as a drama. It's kind of not as much fun as the first half, where they're constantly going to parties and taking drugs and all that type of stuff. And we get to see them on the set of The Lost Boys, and we get to see Corey Feldman having a heart-to-heart with Carrie Fisher on the set of The Burbs. And then the second half is more about them going to rehab, and, as I said, a very angelic portrayal of Corey Feldman as he tries to rescue Corey Haim from his demons. And it's effective at times, and it's quite sad at the end. But I thought it was a rollicking good 90 minutes for any kind of fan of the two Coreys. So yeah, that was a thumbs up for me, and I thought, God, this is perfect material for Meep if he ever stumbles across this movie.
Yeah, I don't know why I haven't. I mean, what is wrong with me? Maybe because of his Lifetime, and I probably stayed away. No, I actually don't have cable, so that's probably the real reason.
Yeah,
sure. I'll look it up. I mean, it is the Coreys. We talked about the Coreys in the podcast, and
we did many years ago.
Many years ago, it seems like. Yeah. So there's always time for the Coreys. Yeah, I'll definitely check it out. In the meantime, you could check out Corey Feldman on Cameo.com. You could, for only a mere $202, you can have him make a video for you.
Ooh.
I was like, so this is how we spent our evening earlier. Me and my wife were looking on Cameo.com, where you can actually get a celebrity to make a video for you for like a fee. Because my good pal Ara Alishan, who co-hosts this podcast, he had, for my birthday, which happened a couple of days ago, he had Catherine Mary Stewart of Night of the Comet.
I saw that, yes.
Send me a nice birthday video, which was pretty amazing, and thank you so much, Ara. It blew me away. So I got curious. I'm like, who else can you find on Cameo.com? So I was looking, and Corey, I typed in Corey, and Corey was there. We spent a long time looking at the celebrity.
Is Brad Pitt on there?
We didn't find Brad Pitt.
Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise. Surely they're on it.
It was more like we were just fascinated by how much people charge, because it ranges from thousands to like Richard Dreyfuss was $1,000 to talk to him, but Corey Feldman was for some reason $202, and then his little introduction message is, "Hi, I'm down to pretty much say or do whatever you ask in your request.
Ooh.
That said, I have 2 rules. Nothing crude, only. Peace,
I wanted to get him to reenact his role from, as it Blown Away, it was called, from 1992.
Yes, totally. Yes, that would be my request. Please reenact that certain scene from Blown Away. And then I think it was pretty low on the list was Felicia Rose from Sleepaway Camp. Yeah. $35. So pretty easy to have. And Zach Galligan from Gremlins.
Yeah.
Was $39.99. So we kept laughing that he was the only one for some reason that was $99.99, like $9.99. Like $9.99 at the end of it. Everyone else was
any Police Academy people in there?
Yes, Michael Winslow was in there, and Steve Guttenberg.
Yes. How much for Steve?
Let's look it up live. Steve Guttenberg.
I would reckon Steve would go for probably around the Corey Feldman mark. I'd say somewhere between 200 and 250.
You're not far off. $175.
Okay.
You can get Steve Guttenberg in your house via a video. And Michael Winslow.
Yeah, well, you'd have to get him to do funny noises.
Yes, that would be definitely the advantage. $80. You get some Michael Winslow action. Voice-strumentalist, as he calls himself. So, yes, this brings us to, of course, the Police Academy films. Let's get right into it with the first one.
Yep. Police Academy.
Where did you get this gun?
Mom gave it to me.
Mister, I am warning you, Hightower!
Their lead.
20, Roger.
Mean.
Does the radio bother you?
5.
I can turn it down.
Obscene. Each and every one of them striving to defend.
You make me sick.
Thank you, sir. I make everybody sick.
I need a volunteer.
That's me!
I love it.
The police academy is such a dangerous place.
Honey, don't worry.
What kind of man graduates?
Can you get my kitty cat out of the tree?
No problem, ma'am.
Police Academy.
Okay, so I'm just going to read you out the blurb here from the back of one of the 2 Police Academy box sets I have. Yes, I have 2 Police Academy box sets.
What?
They're very cheap.
Why do you have 2?
Yeah, I have one. Okay, so I bought one in Dublin in Kilkenny, actually, which is where I'm from, in the early 90s. In the early 90s, in the early 2010s. What am I talking about? And that is in my sister's attic in her house back there. So I needed a second copy for Dublin. Don't ask me why, but they're so cheap. They only cost me about €5 for each box set. So you're getting 7 films for €5. That's not bad quality, but bad economics. Yeah, so this is the back of the DVD for Police Academy 1 and 2. They come in the same slim pack here. The call went out. The recruits came in. No longer would police cadets have to meet standards of height, weight, and other requirements. Brains were optional too. Can't spell IQ? Don't know the number 911? No matter. Police Academy grads are ready to uphold law and disorder. Building on the nightsticks and slapstick tradition going back to the Keystone Cops, Police Academy spawned 6 sequels plus 2 TV series, 1 animated, 1 live action. And that is, that was from the 20th anniversary release of the first film. So this is one I came to after I'd seen the order I saw these films in mirrored the way I saw the Friday the 13th franchise. So I saw Police Academy 2, 3, and 4 first, and then I saw the first one. Mainly because I suppose at the stage when they were coming out in VHS, we didn't have a video machine in our house. I had to rely on friends and neighbors, so they dictated what order I saw Police Academy in. So I saw 2, 3, 4, and then 1. So this one is probably as close as you're going to get to what you would call a regular conventional movie. It's certainly less episodic than the sequels turned out to be, and the first thing that you hear on screen is that triumphant, iconic music which opens all of the Police Academy films. And I don't know. I don't know about you, Meep, but it kind of sends a shiver up my spine, a sort of nostalgic shiver up my spine when I hear that music. It's a great. I just think it's a great theme for them to have. Now the humor in Police Academy 1 is, I suppose you could call it quite lowbrow. I don't think it's that crude. It's not going in full on into the sort of Porky's type humor. It sort of slightly touches on that. It's quite childish in places, but it's not that explicit, I suppose is the word I'm looking for. It's not just all about boobs and people trying to get laid. It's good. It's fun though. It's so 80s looking back on it now. And that's one of the wonderful things. I mean, there's nothing in the world more 80s than Steve Guttenberg in his really short t-shirt that says "one in the oven." And that t-shirt took so much focus away. I never even realized he was wearing a pair of cut-off denim hot pants as well as that t-shirt. And he's listening to Frankie Goes to Hollywood's Relax on his boombox. I mean, he is the 80s in that scene. One of the things as well, looking back, and the film may cause a few people to wince because there are there's use of language and racial stereotyping in the film that might be greeted with lots of hashtag cancelled requests from certain people. I don't think it doesn't. I mean, it makes a point of saying that anybody who uses that type of language is to be ridiculed. Mm-hmm. So certainly the two racist characters in this get their comeuppance, courtesy of having their car tipped over. So that's the Banks and Copeland character, who are the kind of these, I suppose you could call them almost neo-Nazi characters, but I suppose they're not that extreme. The other thing that might cause controversy, and you were talking about the depiction of gay characters in that film with Meg Foster, is the depiction of the gay bar, the Blue Oyster, which I think is great fun, but it's certainly not very 2020. It seems to insinuate that all gay bars are kind of fetish based and have mustachioed men who prey on poor defenseless straight guys, and they're kind of lecherous and monstrous, and they hunt in packs. But I think I think that the filmmakers know they're going over the top with it. I don't think they intend it to be a stereotype as such. As for the characters in the Police Academy film, Mahoney, of course, always stands out. I think Steve Guttenberg is great. I like his sort of laid-back, confident, sarcastic character. I think he's a very likable lead in the film. And I like the kind of cartoonish relationship he has with Captain Harris, who their relationship always reminds me of Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner, because Mahoney is always setting up, Acme-like traps for Harris, or in 2 and 3 for Captain Mauser. So things like what does he do in the first one? What's the
thing with the megaphone?
Oh, right, yes. So yeah, he super glues the megaphone to his mouth. Is that the one? Yeah. I get confused as to what prank is in what movie.
I know it. When you watch them all back to back, it's like, what?
I know. I like Hooks as well. Their squeaky voice. I think she's very likable. Hightower, I think Bubba Smith has he's not, obviously he's from a sporting background and his acting is, I suppose, kind of wooden. I think he's okay though. Commandant Lassard reminds me of an elderly Ralph Wiggum from The Simpsons, with his sort of random non sequiturs. Tackleberry is the one I've never really liked that much in the Police Academy series. His character has just the one gag, and that is that he's obsessed with guns. Mm-hmm. And,
like Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween 2018.
There you go. Wow, I never saw the connection. Have they acknowledged the Police Academy influence in Halloween?
They must. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, I've nothing against the actor or him or anything, but I don't think Tackleberry made me laugh once across all 7 films. Probably just me. I mean, you suppose you can't like all the characters. I mean, there is. This is certainly a problem in later films. There's probably too many characters to try and cram into the movie, so they kind of get pushed to the background. Lots of laughs to be had in this one. I'm not ashamed to say that I chuckled quite a lot when Harris is thrown from his motorcycle and ends up going headfirst up a horse's arse, which is kind of fun. The BJ on the podium, iconic scene. Yes. Also, the one thing I should probably mention at this stage is I absolutely love the original theatrical poster art for all of the Police Academy films. Yeah. It's a style of advertising that's just not used anymore. And I mean, it was very prevalent, not just with Police Academy, but there were actually a lot of films that were like something Academy, Vice Academy. Is there Mortuary Academy or something like that? And they all had this stylized cartoon, well, not cartoon, just illustrated, I suppose, montage of all the characters in various scenarios for each. And it gave the films kind of a uniformity as well. Now, unfortunately, this DVD box set I have here has newly realized 2012 art, I think, or 2014, which on this Region 2 release is yellow. Police Academy is written not in the normal font, but in do you know the one I mean?
I have that the box set as well.
Yeah, and it has a silhouette silhouette of a cop standing beside a cop car, and that's it. It's the same for each one. Yep. And it's like, no, use the original art. It's fantastic. It's absolutely like the discs themselves. Let me just open it up and see. Yeah, the discs themselves have the original art on them. Nice. But yeah, it's a shame because I thought that they were really, really great. And anytime they showed up in magazines back in the 80s, that would always entice me. It makes the films look terrific fun. I think that poster art. But I think this is the strongest movie. If you look in any of the movie guides like Leonard Maltin or any of that, this is the only one that gets anywhere above bomb or 1 star. I think he gave this one 2.5, and it stands out as being a quote, and this is not to diminish the appeal of the sequels, but it's the quote most film like of the series. And it so like I won't spoil what I think of the sequels. I think this is the strongest of the films. But so what are your thoughts on the original 1984? Yeah. I'm assuming you saw this in the theaters.
I saw a lot of these in the theater, guys. They were just easy to watch. I mean, back then, like Police Academy movies, no one thought twice. Like, go see a Police Academy movie. Sure, why not? All right, I'll get to how I saw it in the theater in a little bit, but I was a big fan of this movie from the beginning. I thought it was really, really funny when I first saw it in the theater. And it had a lot of raunchy humor that was definitely getting very popular at the time, and certainly popularized because of Porky's, which this movie does emulate a bit for several reasons. I think it was, of course, the big hit in 82, and then there's there's no surprise that 2 years later there's going to be a lot of movies kind of like Porky's and that kind of do that kind of humor, and this one kind of goes off and it's a little bit its own thing as well. Kim Cattrall from Porky's is in this movie. So there's a lot of they were definitely trying to copy a formula a little bit and then also create their own as well. I would say Porky's and The Right Stuff was definitely the impetus for this film. The Right Stuff. Yeah, The Right Stuff. The producer of this movie worked on The Right Stuff.
Yeah.
And the guy
But
Paul
that's where the connections end, surely.
Paul Maslansky, yeah, he claims that The Right Stuff, working on that movie, that's how he got the idea for Police Academy. A group of people who come together to and their profession, right? And that, and because that, in case a group of astronauts here, a group of police officers, but of course making it pretty zany and wacky, which obviously The Right Stuff is nothing like. But it fills a need for that kind of silly humor, especially as kids in the 80s, and it does it really well. There's a lot of risque humor in this one because this is the only R-rated version of the Police Academy movies, so there's a lot more sexual stuff in here. You have porn star Georgina Spelvin playing the hooker who gives that BJ to Mr. Commandant Lossard in that very, very famous scene. And the devil and Miss Jones herself in this movie, and you get a lot of that kind of humor, but also a lot of very silly, playful stuff that would be fine for like a teenager. Or I was 9, of course, when I saw this movie, so it was certainly some things are eye-opening. There is definitely gratuitous nudity thrown in here when they could. Lots of shower scenes, so definitely going back to Porky's. A funny scene where it pans over to the. There's lots of rear window kind of panning over to the windows of each of the rooms, and then you see the characters in their nightly rituals, and then of course it pans over to the girls' locker room, where Steve Guttenberg is enjoying a beer and watching the girls take showers casually, and then of course Captain Harris catches him and berates him, throws him out, and then takes his beer and drinks it and watches the girls, and of course immediately gets caught by them and he's scared, and he gets scared away. I always thought that was a pretty funny scene, and of course any scene that has boobs in it was also very memorable back then too. This was a fun movie for me at 9 years old. It was quite a day for me this came out March 23rd, 1984. I saw this at the Warner Twin Theater, which is in Times Square, and I saw it along with another movie called House by the Cemetery.
Ooh, what a double bill. And what an age to be watching House by the Cemetery.
I did not... I just thought House by the Cemetery was going to be like a standard kind of whatever slasher at the time, which I was watching a lot of back then. And those movies didn't quite faze me that much until a little bit later on, when they really kind of mess with me a little bit. I didn't know what I was expecting back then when House by the Cemetery. It was like, it's quite shocking.
And did you sneak into House by the Cemetery, or were you legitimately sold a ticket as a 9-year-old to go see it?
Yeah, we just watched both movies. They were playing in the 2 screens there, so we went from one to the other. Okay,
so you didn't actually have to go up to a box office and purchase a ticket.
No, we didn't buy a ticket for that one. I miss those days of theater hopping. It was so much fun. That was quite a movie. There was lots of things in this movie that just really stuck with me, like the horse's butt scene, the Blue Oyster Bar, of course, which, yes, you said maybe hasn't aged as well, but I always find that scene when it's a running gag throughout the series, and I feel like every film in the series should have had that gag, but they didn't, of course. I was always disappointed when there wasn't the Blue Oyster Bar scene. I'm like, why? I want this Blue Oyster Bar scene. So those are my favorites in those movies. And they're just a funny scene of, dancing and just shenanigans. And so that was a good running gag. And the series did have some running gags throughout. And certainly having a lot of the characters in each series, each film show up was great. And it was something that was comforting at the same time. You get to see some of your favorite characters in each film. And when some of them didn't show up, you were like a little bit disappointed, and then they had replacements, but we'll get to those soon. I was a fan. I liked Steven Guttenberg in this movie. He's a solid lead in this film. I think he was very funny. He has, like you said, a very laid back quality, which kind of works with the humor in this movie. If somebody who was too smug, I had this problem sometimes with Chevy Chase, who's a little bit smug sometimes in movies. So if it was someone who was a little bit more smug and not very, I don't know, someone just didn't come across as very nice, I think it would have been as fun. But I think Steve Guttenberg generally came across as a fun, loving guy and like a decent person, and so it was a fun character to watch. But I think his relationship that he has with the Michael Winslow character is Larval Jones is a great through line through this the first 4 films, and I like seeing that relationship blossom. And it starts here. They're introduced pretty early on in the film, and it's interesting that Larval Jones was a character who was a last minute addition to this film. As it turns out, that was part of my trivia. Is he was discovered pretty late in the casting process, and they kind of added him to the movie based on his comedy routine that he was doing at the time. And thinking about the series without Larval Jones, I'm not sure I would appreciate it as much, to be honest. I think
he certainly is one of the most iconic parts of it,
yeah.
And he was in all 7.
He's used so well in this film, and like he is definitely an MVP for me. So I can't imagine a movie without him. So I'm so glad they found him. So glad they added him in, and of course his unique talents, his unique sound effects talents, really add a lot to the humor in this film. And certainly one of my favorite characters. I like everybody. I like Hooks with her quiet demeanor, and who's kind of I guess Captain Harris is often trying to exploit her soft, tender side, and Hightower is, Bubba Smith is an imposing presence, and I do kind of like his character because I like that he has this complicated past with like him being a florist.
I liked that touch. That was fun.
And actually was like, why doesn't he stay a florist? So, like, he seems actually like, that's like a legitimate like job. Like you could just be a florist. Like you have your own florist. Like have your own flower shop. Why not? It seems to suit him more somehow in this movie. So when he does join them again at the end, I'm like, oh, I don't know. Maybe he should have said florist, because that seemed to be like a peaceful job for him. I love Lassard. I mean, Lassard is like a buffoon. He's prone to accidents. But he's always there with a smile, oblivious to everything, and that's kind of what is funny about his character. He's so consistent throughout the series. He's always the same, and I love the consistency of his character. I like G.W. Bailey as Harris, really. I think he's really funny in this movie, and in the installments where he doesn't show up, I'm like disappointed. I'm like, where's Harris? I mean, Harris is I want Harris. And then it has other characters like we'll get to them as they go. They're maybe a little less memorable, but like some of the other ones that are set up, like Fackler and so on. But I'm a big fan of the first movie. Paul Maslansky produced several films throughout his career. Raw Meat was one of his early films. That horror
Donald
movie,
Pleasance movie,
Donald Pleasance horror movie. Damnation Alley, Ruckus with Linda Blair was a fun little First Blood-like movie that came out before First Blood. Return to Oz, he was a producer on that. He, I guess around the time when the Police Academy movies started fizzling, he did Ski Patrol. He tried to restart his career with that. I don't think that kind of worked. And he also did Cop and a Half, which definitely did not work.
Is that Burt Reynolds?
Yeah. And I think there was a sequel to it, like a direct-to-video sequel, which is scary to me. The writers, Neil Israel, first off, he wrote Bachelor Party from 1984 as well, which he directed, and Moving Violations in 1985, which he also directed. Yeah. Two really super fun movies, similar comedy.
Moving Violations is very similar to a Police Academy film.
Yeah, I think both of them have a similar sense of humor. Moving Violations definitely is them trying to definitely capitalize on doing another kind of Police Academy-like movie, but I happen to have a soft spot for that one too.
Me too.
Yeah, and he wrote Real Genius, which I love, and but I think a lot of that might be contributed to Martha Coolidge. But he directed, like I said, Bachelor Party, He did Combat High, which was like a teen TV movie, which I remember being fond of at the time, with Keith Gordon. Keith Gordon, yes. And he did Breaking the Rules from the early 90s. I remember like a kind of buddy movie with a few people like Jason Bateman. That was decent. And Surf Ninjas, which probably ended his theatrical career. And he also directed episodes of the TV versions of Fast Times and Clueless. I think he had a connection to Amy Heckerling because he also wrote one of the Look Who's Talking movies. Pat Proft, which was the co-writer, he also, he did some of those other movies that I mentioned. He also did the Star Wars Holiday Special.
Oh, famous.
Yes, quite famous. He wrote The Lucky Stiff, which was a movie that Anthony Perkins directed. I think his second film that he directed. The Naked Guns, the Hot Shots movies, the scary movies. So, yeah, you can see like the template for some of those movies in a movie like this. Like that kind of humor was definitely something that would later be used a lot in movies, especially in the late 80s and 90s. Hugh Wilson, the director, he made several films. He was best known for being the creator of WKRP in Cincinnati, which I watched in that time period, but I don't remember as much these days. But when we get to part 2, there's a connection there. And then he also directed some other movies like Burglar, which actually starred Bobcat Goldthwait and G.W. Bailey. Have you ever seen that one?
I have, not in a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was a big fan of Whoopi Goldberg back then when she was doing comedy.
And yeah, I'm a fan of that movie. I think it's pretty funny. I always loved the Whoopi Goldberg vehicles of the 80s and 90s, and having her along with G.W. Bailey and Bobcat was like having two movies, having a burglar Whoopi movie and a Police Academy movie at the same time. He also did Blast from the Past. I think it was from the 90s with Encino Man. What's his name? And Alicia Silverstone. And
Brendan Fraser.
Brendan Fraser. And he had a big hit in the 90s with First Wives Club. Sadly, since passed away.
I have a First Wives Club mug in my apartment.
Oh.
Yeah. It was a promo gift from whatever the film company was, Warner's or whoever released it.
That's an interesting prop to have. Very cool. All right, so that's the first movie, and there's a lot to love there, and but of course it was a hit. It made a good amount of money at the box office. It brought in $81 million at the 1984 box office, which is pretty big. Another like $150 million worldwide on a $4 million budget. So that was a huge hit. So that meant sequel. And just 1 year later, we got this one.
Lock your doors. Activate the dog. Stand up the man. Stretch the wire, because they've taken to the streets. They're the graduates of Police Academy, turned loose on their first assignment.
You gotta build a trust between you and the people, and they'll respect you.
They're armed.
Now look, I'm serious.
And they're dangerous.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mahoney.
You have the right to sing the blues. You have the right to cable TV.
It's a nice piece.
Tackleberry.
I was referring to your sidearm.
Hightower.
Yo! Yo? Yo, sir!
Jones. Hooks.
Oh, dirtbag!
Captain Lassard. Commandant Lassard. And the lovable Lieutenant Mauser.
It's Captain Mauser.
Last year, they were in training.
Time to deploy for school.
I'll go when I'm ready.
You're ready now, mister.
This year, they're in charge. Police Academy, their first assignment.
Okay, that's the trailer for Police Academy 2, their first assignment. Yes, so this came out almost exactly a year later, March 29th, 1985. And I saw it in the theater. I saw this again, fittingly, with another movie that was another series at the time, Porky's Revenge. was playing along with that in the Criterion Center, and I saw this movie and I liked it, but I don't know, something about it was a little off for me. Seeing it, I didn't laugh as much. And then when it came to home video, I watched it more, and I think it played on TV a lot. I feel like part 2, for some reason, played all the time on TV. I don't know what it was. And I just didn't quite ever get into it as much. I don't know what it was. I think it was a little bit off. It didn't have the same director. This is Jerry Paris doing this one. It had some slightly different elements. This is, if the focus now here was the recruits are now cops and their first assignment, and it's dealing with crime in a big city, and they're assigned to this really bad, I guess, police station that gets a lot of crime, and I guess they're set up to basically fail, right? And so which is a good plot. I mean, it's like you want to root for them. They're the underdogs, and so they're set up to fail by the characters in the film. In this case, it's not Captain Harris. It's a whole other character. What's his name? Mauser. Yeah. Mauser and his sidekick Proctor are introduced in these films, and yeah, I don't know. It was a little bit off maybe because of that. I just wanted a little bit. I wanted Captain Harris, but I enjoyed it. I liked some of the humor. I liked Winslow in this movie. I liked the whole scene he has with the yuppie couple. I think that was a highlight. I'm still trying to think of some of the other things in this movie that kind of popped to me, but I don't know. I've always kind of preferred some of the other ones, so I didn't quite attach myself to this one for some reason. But yeah, as seeing it in the theater, it was like, oh, it's like seeing some familiar characters, seeing Steve Guttenberg again, which I think he's, again, playing the same character in a very solid way. You like him. And then, of course, you get more Tackleberry in this one, which is maybe why I'm not as fond. He gets a girlfriend character. I think it's Colleen Camp, who I like. And then you introduce her family. I'm not sure how much I like of that, but it's kind of like a lot of the same joke. Howard Hessman is in this movie as the Lassard's brother. So you get more Lassard's brother than Lassard, which I thought was a little bit. I want actual comment on Lassard. I don't want Lassard's brother, but I think that WKRP connection is there because Howard Hessman, of course, is Pete Lassard. And he was, of course, a star of WKRP in Cincinnati, so I guess he's thrown into this movie because of that, maybe. I don't know. There's like a mix of things that don't quite work. They set up the Zed character in this movie, which I do like, as a gang leader. A little too much gang stuff, though, in this movie. I don't know if the crime stuff actually works for me, but it does set up the Zed character, like I said, and his foe, Sweet Chuck, which is a running gag throughout the series of their antagonist relationship. I think it's funny. It's funny in spots, but I don't know if it kind of works as a whole for me personally. How about you?
Yeah, I've got much more of an attachment to this one because it was the first one I saw, and like you said, this is the one for some reason that always turns up on television. I had this on a VHS taped off the television on a spectacular double bill on that VHS tape with the very first Nightmare on Elm Street. Whoa. So that was quite the double bill to watch.
Nice.
Yes. So there's a big nostalgic attachment to their first assignment for me. I used to actually, I would say, go so far as say I used to love this film. Now, I think love is a bit extreme a word to use now. I do like it, though. It kind of sets up the formula for the future entries in the series, which is, the bare minimum of setup. In this case, it's Commandant Lassard Commandant Lassard's brother has 30 days to clean up his precinct, and he asks, Commandant Lassard for a bunch of recruits to help him out. Hence their first assignment. The new characters, I think, are quite good. We get Sweet Chuck, Proctor, and Zed, and the main cast from Part 1 return, except, of course, for Captain Harris, who's replaced by Mauser. I did like that opening scene, the first scene where we encounter Mahoney, because his get up in the first film was that one in the oven t-shirt and his hot pants. In this, we see him patrolling the beach in tight shorts, a sleeveless t-shirt, and a sweater tied around his neck. So it's kind of the 1985 update of the one in the oven look. As you were saying, outside of Mahoney, the main draw for me in this film is Zed, Bobcat Goldthwait. Now, I neglected to mention about part one that I always assumed that Michael Winslow's special effects were just dubbed over after the fact. This was pre-internet, so I just assumed he can't do those sound effects. That has to be done with a sound effects machine in the post-production process. But on the flip side of that, I always assumed that Bobcat Goldthwait really had this voice that he uses in the Police Academy films, because I think it might be Burglar, but there's one other film that I saw around this time that he was in that was not Police Academy, and he uses the same voice. And I thought, oh my God, he must have some disability. The poor man. But it obviously isn't his real voice. But I just love, again, I'm going to use the Ralph Wiggum analogy here. I think he's like a punk rock Ralph Wiggum in this film. I love his homemade drive-in in his lair, his gang lair. Did you notice that? It's kind of half a shell of a used car pointing towards a television, which I thought was great fun. I like that scene where they loot the supermarket, and as he's leaving, he says, "Thank you, I found some." I'm not going to even try to imitate his voice. He goes, "Thank you, I found some really nice bargains here." That type of stuff I really found kind of funny. His character is quite silly, and that sort of appeals to me. And he is kind of a highlight for me in 2, 3, and 4. Mauser, I thought, I don't know if I felt the absence of Harris as much as you did. I thought Mauser was an adequate substitute. I do love the Wile E. Coyote scenes where Mahoney substitutes Mauser's shampoo for epoxy resin, which basically glues his hands to his scalp, which is probably breaking every health and safety regulation, and I'm sure it's a sackable offence for Mahoney. We do get to, like this, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but we do get to see Mauser's buttocks as he runs out of the shower looking for some assistance, but it's hard to tell if he's wearing like a fleshy body stocking or not, because it's kind of sudsy around that area. Maybe you could provide some insight, Meep? No? I
don't remember.
Not a thing you were focusing on now.
I don't remember that as much.
Okay. The character of Proctor is introduced here, and I think, he's in the remainder of the films from this stage on. Again, he's goofy and he's kind of fun. But again, I suppose Mahoney is the center of the movie with that kind of laid back swagger. I like it when he goes undercover at the end and he dresses up like Ozone from Breakin'. Did you see the similarities?
Yeah, I can see that.
Yes. And I like the scene where he's getting measured up for his police uniform and he stuffs a modelling balloon down his trousers to make it look like he has an enormous winkle. I thought that was kind of fun. And in this one, Jones does his first, I think this is his first appearance of his badly dubbed kung fu movie shtick, which he repeats in sort of subsequent episodes, which is kind of fun. He battles some street thugs who are harassing an Asian greengrocer, which has one of, I suppose, again, another non-PC moment, because the Asian greengrocer is kind of a stereotype of sorts, you could say. Yes. Blue Oyster Bar is back again.
But the music isn't, though, right? Like, isn't the music a little different in this version? At least on my Blu-ray version, the music is not the same.
Where?
At the Blue Oyster Bar, yeah.
Oh, right. It's not playing the tango music.
It's not playing the tango music that was in the first and the other ones, but it was like playing a different version of it.
Do you know what I noticed about this film that really stood out to me was that when the title comes up, it doesn't use the Police Academy font, and that always bothers me.
It's weird when they do that, right?
Yeah, I know. Because all the other films do, as far as I know, but this one just has it in sort of blue plain letters without the.
I think my Blu-ray has the regular font for some reason. I don't know. Maybe I don't know why there's discrepancies between home video formats, but yeah, that's weird.
I know, because there's lots of weird things about this box set I have, where some films are in widescreen and some aren't. But But back to part 2, yeah, I agree with you totally about Tackleberry. His obsession with guns is I suppose like it's okay, but his love story in this film I find really, really not interesting, and I think the movie drags when it focuses on that character. And again, when he meets Kirkland's family, again, I'm just not interested. So the meat of the movie for me is Mahoney versus Mauser, and then of course Zed as the croaky voiced thug. And his gang actually reminded me that, like, some of the aesthetic of the gang and probably the film as a whole reminded me of Death Wish 3, which is it's a police academy film waiting to happen. That movie. So for me, there are so many pluses in the film that outweigh the minuses as such, and again a big nostalgic appeal for me for this one. I don't know if I'd like any of the Police Academy films if I hadn't seen them back in the day. It's probably something I'll mention later on as the series goes on, but the nostalgic draw of them is just too much for me. That's why I love them.
No, I totally hear you, and I think, in hindsight, it's not a movie that I'm trying to slam or anything. I just didn't quite connect with it. I wanted like the love. There was like there's like a story of him and Julie Brown. But I think it's just not developed, so it's like it never doesn't really go anywhere. Like you wanted it to go somewhere, but it doesn't. I think reading a little bit about it, like there was a actual romance between Julie Brown and Steve Guttenberg's character, but they cut it because they just didn't have chemistry. So there's little remnants of it, but it's not quite there. It's weird. So there's like things that are kind of work and things that kind of don't work for me. So it's like a little bit of a mixed bag, but I definitely appreciate the humor. I do like the introduction to the Zed character. It gives the series a new zest, and then where it goes in future sequels. It's fun. So that's part 2. It made I think it did pretty well at the box office. It made $55 million this time, 114 worldwide, and the budget was still low, so this is a big moneymaker for Warner Brothers. So, which meant let's get another one into the theaters, and almost exactly 1 year later, this one came.
Police Academy 3.
Got it! The state says it can no longer afford 2 police academies.
We better call
Mahoney.
Your favorite graduates are back.
We're here.
Mahoney,
We're rubies!
What?
Hooks,
Don't move. They're back.
Callahan, Hightower, Tackleberry,
Do you want to kill me?
Backler, and Jones. Their assignment?
You're gonna make one hell of a cop.
Thanks, Dad. And would you give this to Mom for me?
Mold a brand new generation of recruits
That didn't hurt!
into a fighting machine in a matter of weeks.
Shit!
Then, together, they're going to save their beloved academy the only way they know how. By chance. Police Academy 3, back in training.
You're sitting in a non-smoking area.
Put it out when I'm finished.
You'll put it out now, mister.
What they don't know can't stop them.
Okay, so Police Academy 3 back in training. So this sees the graduates, they're called back, aren't they, to help Lassard. There's 2 competing police academies. Only one will survive, so that sort of competition is put in place. It's incredibly far-fetched, but this is Police Academy 3. You're not looking for realism. This is whenever I mention a timing, by the way, Meep, this is referring to the PAL timings. It's probably slightly longer for you on an NTSC, but this is a paltry 80 minutes long, which makes it the shortest of the film so far. Although there are 16 deleted and alternate scenes that exist in what's known as a TBS Superstation version. But so this, as I said, the template is kind of set with part 2. So part 3 brings back all the familiar characters from the first 2, non-police characters from their first assignment end up as policemen or women in this one. You know, we get Mrs. Fackler, Zed, Sweet Chuck all join the academy. So if nothing else, you know, the filmmakers are aware that familiarity with the characters is what's going to get the customers back. And, you know, I admire their reluctance not to meddle with the formula. They obviously were taking a leaf out of the book of the people who were producing Friday the 13th, because certainly the first 4 Friday the 13th movies were identikit and did not dare mess with the formula. It's actually only when they started messing with the formula that things started to go off the rails a bit for that series. So I think Police Academy probably learned a lesson or two from that. This one has a bit more action in it, particularly an extended sequence tacked on at the end where they chase some bad guys who... this is one thing about certainly the first 4 Police Academy movies, is that probably not so much part 2, but 1, 3, and 4 all have this sort of tacked on sequence at the end of action where this gang of bad guys appear from nowhere. They're not really characters as such. They're just there to provide a finale to the film. And in this one, it's done on jet skis, and it's very effective. It's a good action sequence. You know, I suppose it's wise they don't focus on the bad guys for me, because it's the law enforcement characters that fans want to see, and you know, God knows there are far too many characters in there as it is to cram into 80 minutes. You know, Hightower, Hooks, Tackleberry, you know, they're like the Uhura, Sulu, and Chekhov. You know, they're very much, as always, in the background. They'd be missed if they weren't there, but they're non-essential to the plot. You know, they're given very little to do. Bobcat Goldthwait is kind of promoted more to the front. I don't know if his character would be kind of divisive with fans. I happen to think he's one of the best things about parts 2, 3, and 4, as I was mentioning. But I can see why he might rub people the wrong way. But I think he deserves the fact that he gets a bit more screen time than maybe some of the more established characters like Hightower, Hooks, Tackleberry. By the way, when I was growing up, I thought Hooks was spelled Hux. I don't think I ever read the credits at the end of the film. I just always thought it was Hooks. Yeah. I think it's a stronger film, this one, than their first assignment. You know, the raunch is turned down. And this is actually the first one at this side of the pond to be rated PG. The first one was a 15. Second one was a 12. And this one is a PG, meaning it's sort of the safest one so far. Yeah. We do get to see Proctor naked in this one, though. Although, if you look at the full screen version of the film, if you indeed, you know, I'm not obsessed with nude men. This is making it sound like I am, but I'm not. But if you freeze frame certain sections in the widescreen edition, you can see he's wearing underpants in that scene where he's locked outside of his hotel room.
Oh, really?
And he's supposed to be nude. You know, this wasn't pervy. I just like spotting movie mistakes. There's one very odd scene in the film where Lassard is addressing the 6 main characters whilst shifting side to side on his wheeled swivel chair. And no explanation is kind of given to why, and I kind of like that. It's just part of his bizarre eccentricity, I suppose. And again, in this one, there's Asian stereotyping of a sort that might be #cancelled in 2020. So we get the character of Nagata. Is it?
Yeah, Nagata.
So
Elvis Nagata.
Yeah, that's it. So he's referred to by Mauser at one stage as Fu Manchu, stir-fried shrimp. Jesus. And Mauser also says to him, "I'm not teaching my cadets to use a wok." So, yeah, I'm sure that social media would have something to say about some of those lines. And I mean, Nagata is shown as being kind of gormless and good at martial arts. So, you know, again, it's of its time. The humor, probably aiming at a younger market with this one. But again, it's the Mahoney-Mauser dynamic that provides most of the highlights for me. In this one, you know, in part 2 he had his hands glued to his scalp. In this one, he's rather foolishly tricked into putting some duct tape across his eyes, you know, because they're trying to mask it. They're giving him an alcohol taste test, and they just say, you know, you need to put this mask on so you can't see what you're tasting. And when he removes it, it rips his eyebrows off. And that provides a good few jokes later in the film as he tries to cover up his his eyebrows with fake ones or with drawn on ones. I thought that was kind of fun. I liked that the police headquarters or dispatch, whatever, the central hub, it's run by what looks like a Commodore 64. Did you spot that one? Yeah. I like the Psycho reference as well. There's a scene where Sweet Chuck is having a shower and we see the silhouette of somebody approaching holding what looks like a knife, but then when the curtain is drawn back, it's just Zed holding a tube of shampoo, which I thought was fun. But for me, the biggest laugh is kind of unintentional. In the climax of the film, as I said, there's some long shots of the police academy team on jet skis, and they are performed by very obvious stunt doubles. Zed, for example, in one shot, he looks very slim and very, very orange for some reason. But I thought this looking back now with my 2020 eyes, I think Back in Training is better than their first assignment. Not as good as the first one, but I think it's an upward trajectory from part 2. What do you think, Meep?
Oh, I always thought that. I thought 3 was like, oh yeah, this is what I liked about the first movie. There's more of that in this one. I think, I left off a big reason why I didn't like part 2, because no Callahan.
No, of course, and we forgot to mention Callahan from part 1 as well.
Yeah, she was definitely like one of my favorite characters, and then suddenly she's not in the second one, so that was a big big void to fill. And then so she's back with this one, and then she gets a funny kind of like little thing with Nagato, and I always thought that was a pretty funny little side romance thing that they had. Like, she was very impressed with his martial arts skills, and that turned her on, and so they had a thing between the two of them, and so yeah, I love that element of the movie. I like the idea of the addition of water sports. I think this is from here on out. There's like a thing in each of these movies, like they have to add an additional like elements like water sports or skateboarding or whatever it is, and this one, water sports. And yeah, it's a little bit more of that for me, and I think Mauser for me is the stuff with Mauser is funnier to me in this one. So kind of gels, and maybe as a character in the series, like I could finally relax and enjoy like this edition of Mauser, like not be upset that they replaced G.W. Bailey, whatever. And I like the prank with the eyebrows. I thought it was really funny, and I think they do a good job with that and mining humor from stupid things like that. And then Zed joining the idea of Zed joining the Force was really funny, and just I guess maybe being back at the Academy. Maybe that was like the magic of part 3. Part 2 was filmed like in LA, and so they could have like a cityscape kind of feel. So it wasn't really. And the first one was shot in Canada to get that feel of the Academy, which is where they filmed that stuff. And this was a return to that, and so it was like coming home for me. And it was funny enough, it was directed by the same person as the second one, but it feels a little bit different to me, like in a way. And you also get the return of Georgina Spelvin in a running, and that joke comes back in this one, which I thought was funny. So like I like that there was a continuity in the series to this point, and I guess it helped that these movies were filmed like once a year, like one a year, right? So you can do that continuity, and you'll remember things from the previous films because then when they do callbacks, and so I had a lot of fun watching this in the theater and thinking, okay, yeah, this is what I liked about the first movie, though it's slightly, like you said, it's definitely toned down. It's definitely made for a 10-year-old at this point, me. Although there's some like slightly risque stuff in it, but nothing a kid couldn't handle. And but yeah, there I was in the theater, 10 years old, watching this movie, and like totally laughing and enjoying it, and having fun. And there's some stereotypes in there, like you mentioned, and they're not. Yeah, they haven't aged well. A lot of these stereotypes in these movies haven't aged well, but they are of their time, and so take them as you will. But I did enjoy having Nagato as a character in this film. I remember him fondly from Revenge of the Nerds, and I really liked that character in Revenge of the Nerds, and having him here playing a very similar character was a welcome addition to me. And I saw this at the Marlborough Theater, which was I think not far from where I lived, right? This was like 1986, so yeah, I was living up in Brooklyn by this point. So I saw it at the Marlboro Theater and totally enjoying it. I was 10 going on 11, and it's a perfect movie for me. And I think I watched this one a bit more on home video than some of the other ones. Like, certainly more than 2, even though 2 was on all the time. So 3 was a frequent renter for me at the video store. And, I think a lot of it's Callahan, too. That helps.
What's your favorite thing about Callahan, Meep?
A couple of things.
Yeah, I was thinking.
I like her obsession with playing by the rules. Sure, that's it. She's good with her weapons. She doesn't take it she's not over the top with her weapons like Tackleberry. She's good at her job and she takes it seriously. That's what I like about her.
Okay.
Yeah.
I believe you.
Yeah, totally. Sure. This one made $43 million at the box office. So, not like a big drop from the second ones. And worldwide, it made almost exactly the same as the second one. So, yeah, they were like, let's do another one. And so, yes, 1 year later, we got this one.
Those talented graduates are back in Police Academy.
Oh! I want to welcome all of you to
Citizens on Patrol.
Citizens on Patrol.
The Police Academy has offered to train you citizens
You just don't think I'm fast enough anymore, do you?
to better protect yourselves.
Do we get to pack heat?
Attention all cars, attention all cars.
Mahoney,
Gee, I love saying that.
Jones, Hightower, Sweet Chuck, Zed, and Tackleberry.
Please!
Good idea.
From now on, by land,
You have the right to remain silent.
Who's gonna save me?
by sea, or by air, there's no escaping justice.
Gentlemen, may I see your license and registration, please?
I can blast them out of the sky, sir.
Not yet.
I should give them a warning shot first.
Police Academy 4, Citizens on Patrol.
Now be careful, because a 44 Magnum has quite a kick.
See it in your neighborhood while you still have one.
Okay, that's Police Academy 4, Citizens on Patrol. Ah, yes, Citizens on Patrol was, for me, probably the sequel that I watched the most growing up in the 80s. I think it came out in 87, so I was like 12, going on 12 at the time, and it's definitely a movie for 12-year-olds. I don't know if a lot of adults are sitting around watching Police Academy 4 all the time, but I certainly was watching it a lot in 1987 and a little bit later in the 80s. I had a lot of fun with this one. I think it kind of goes back a bit to the first one because you're getting a new batch of new recruits, and the focus is on, of course, citizens who are enabled to join, in a way, the force and to be empowered that way. And I like that idea. It's a very slight, idea of just there's another excuse to have more characters, I guess, and that might be the drawback for some. And maybe takes away a little bit from some of the other ones that we've known and loved in the series. But I don't know. I kind of liked some of the additions. I guess Zed gets a bigger character in this one. I would say he has a love story even. I thought it was a cute little romance he has with Corinne Bohrer, who I remember from several movies of that time period. There's skateboarding in this movie. There's hot air balloons. So this has become a new thing with the series of having some kind of sport of some kind. And this one, I guess, the sport of skateboarding, gratuitous skateboarding. I don't even know why they're skateboarding, but they're skateboarding. And hot air balloons later in the film. You get actors from Friday the 13th in this movie, like Julie Cummins. You get a rap. You get rapping. Was there breakdancing in this one? There might have been somewhere. I don't know. It just had a lot going on in it. It's a very busy movie, but it's not a very... I guess it's busy in a way that keeps it moving. It's never boring. There's always something happening. And that's kind of what I appreciate about this movie. When you get to part 4, it might become like a chore, I guess, in some series. But I don't know. I was enjoying it. I was enjoying, even though it was a PG movie and fairly tame. This is even more tame than part 3, I would say. It just entertained me. And I just was never bored while watching it. And I just felt like maybe I was getting more for my money with a lot going on. There were a lot of set pieces and a lot of silliness happening on the screen. And so I watched it a lot. And I remember seeing it in the theater and thinking, yeah, this was a fun movie. It stuck out with me. I saw a lot of movies that day. They were like, like 3 or 4 movies at least. I think one of them was Angel Heart. Street Smart, maybe. It was a lot of like grown-up movies, like Street Smart, Angel Heart, Lethal Weapon. We're all playing. I snuck into a bunch of movies, and then Police Academy 4 was kind of mixed in there. So it was kind of like a little relief from, like, say, Angel Heart, watching this one, which I thought Angel Heart was too, like, to me, that was like deadly serious, and it wasn't as fun for me. So watching a Police Academy movie after Angel Heart was like welcome. It was a very light film, and light as the hot air balloon, and I had a lot of fun with it, and so I got a lot of viewing, and I liked a lot of the characters. Some of the newer characters. God, what are some of their names? You got the House character, I think he's called.
Yeah.
He's fun. You got like Billy Bird returning to the series. You get just a mix. You got G.W. Bailey's back, which is what I liked about it. You got G.W. Bailey, but this time Proctor is like his sidekick in this one. Sharon Stone shows up in this movie. It's probably one of her favorite movies that she's done.
I would imagine.
Yeah. I would love to have. Maybe I should look for her on Cameo.com and say, please talk about Police Academy 4 as a request. Nagata's back, but he's I don't know, he's a little bit sidelined. There should have been more of Nagata. Brian Backer from Fast Times is a skateboarder in this movie.
From The Burning, I would know
The Burnings, yes, that Tony Malin collection. And David Spade is also a skateboarder in this movie. And then when you look up like the credits for like the real skateboarders, actually they have it at the end. It's like it's like real skateboarders. Like some of the best, most famous skateboarders did the skateboarding in this movie. So there's like a lot of gratuitous skateboarding. Scott Thompson, I think, returns too. Like he was out for 2, but he's back with this one. There's a lot of weird like alumni from Fast Times that kind of like show up in these movies on and off. It's interesting. I was a fan. How about you?
Yeah, I like this one as well. I thought, I had part 2 on, as I said, taped off the television, so I watched that a lot. But I think this was the next one I watched the most. I think it was just so readily available in the video shop. I must have had about 50 copies of it or something. For me, though, it does feel like the last proper entry in the franchise because, this is the finale for Mahoney and Zed. Right. And I think after that, I think the franchise suffers from their absence in later sequels. So this feels kind of like Friday the 13th, the final chapter felt like, the full stop at the end of the sort of first proper part of the series. This feels the same. I love the, after we hear the iconic opening music on this, we're treated to a hip hop track called Citizens on Patrol, which is performed by Michael Winslow. Yeah, it's performed by Michael Winslow and the LA Dream Team, and this is all on the backdrop of all the skateboarders, as you were saying. So they're obviously going for a certain demographic with the film, and the film gets straight into slapstick as well, because the opening scene is Sweet Chuck accidentally hit in the groin, which reminded me of the man getting hit by football in the groin short film from The Simpsons. So it's quite lowbrow, let's face it. Yep. And yeah, Sergeant Harris is a welcome return, although I have no problems with Mauser. I thought he was fun as well. But, as you were saying, I love the continuity in the films. Often with a franchise, sometimes they won't carry over characters and they feel like kind of separate entities. I mean, if you think of something like the Howling series, which are completely different films for each entry, what I love about what I want from a franchise is a sense of continuity, and certainly Police Academy provides that. There's a scene where Proctor is playing with the Newton's Cradle on the desk. You know, the Newton's Cradle toy, desk toy. He's playing with that on Sergeant Harris's desk, and it allows Harris to say quite loudly in front of a lot of people, "Don't you ever touch my balls without asking." And that's kind of the level of humor. But of course, like I'm a year older than you, Meep, so I would have been 13 when this came out, and that kind of humor would have made me guffaw. For sure. The Kirkland characters are pushed more to the background in this one, which is a good thing for me. We see one dinner table scene at the start that devolves into an overzealous play fight, and that's about it. But once again, like Hooks, Tackleberry, Hightower seem to have very little screen time in this one again. They must have been really annoyed because they're there from the very start, and then these interlopers come in for each subsequent sequel, and they seem to get more screen time than them. So in as you said, we got skateboarders in this one, Arnie and Kyle, David Spade, of course, in his movie debut. The pensioner, Mrs. Feldman, she also gets a lot of screen time, but I always found Sharon Stone's character of Claire is quite anonymous. She kind of ends up at the finale as a main character, but she's very little to do in the build up to that. It's kind of an odd thing. I mean,
she definitely feels like she was cut out a bit. Yeah. Yes.
There's a childish nostalgia to a lot of this thing. I'm sure that one of your favorite scenes, Meep, is where Leslie Easterbrook is pretending to be a drowning victim in the pool whilst training the new recruits.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's my favorite.
And she emerges from the water with her wet t-shirt, no bra, and she says, "Now, who's going to save me?" And then all the male recruits dive into the swimming pool at the same time. I think there's an alternate version of that where you don't get to see her wet t-shirt, I think, for the trailer, or maybe for a TV version as well. Proctor on the Portaloo. Do you call them Portaloos over there?
I think we call them what do we call those? Like porters?
Temporary toilets, what you call them, whatever you want to call them. We call them Portaloos over here. It's the kind of toilet you'd have in a building site, where he's casually reading his Archie comic, and unbeknownst to him, he's lifted by crane into the middle of a football ground in the middle of a game, and the pranksters then lift the exterior of the Portaloo, revealing the pooping policeman to all and sundry. I thought that was, I mean, it's not going to win any Oscars, but it made me laugh.
Does make me laugh too.
The Blue Oyster makes its appearance here again, but it seems very shoehorned in because Harris and Proctor are tricked into thinking it's a salad bar for some reason. What a salad bar would be doing down a sleazy dark alley, I don't know. What's the prank here in this one? It's Harris has his deodorant substituted for mace. Again, surely a sackable offence, Mahoney. How are you still employed? If I tried this in my workplace, I'm pretty sure I'd be given my cards fairly promptly. As you're saying, I think Zed is quite adorable and funny in this. He's kind of like Elmo, and his love affair with Laura is really good fun to watch. And they have a moment where they're running towards each other in the park in almost kind of fake slow motion. And the tune in the background is the Blow Monkeys, It Doesn't Have to Be This Way, which is a track I love. I just think that's... that song, I think that sequence is great. And I love he writes her this really funny off the cuff punk song, love song, and I just think he's terrific. And when we get to part 5, I think he's sorely missed because along with Mahoney, he's the strongest thing here again. For 3 films running, he's for me the best thing about the film. Overall, I think it's par for the course for the first 4 films. I think all 4 of them have great moments, and all 4 have moments that I wouldn't be that entertained by. But for the most part, I'll stand up for these first 4 Police Academy films. The next 3, I can kind of see where the critics are coming from, but we'll get to that shortly. By the way, when I on this DVD I have, like, it says nothing on the sleeve to indicate this, but actually on the disc itself it says Police Academy 4 alternative version, and I was like, what the hell is that about? And like, I did some research, and I think it is that there is a scene, I think it's actually in this one, part 4, where Harris gets the megaphone glued to his mouth.
Right, yeah. gets the in the other one he gets the mark around his lips. Yeah,
that's it. Yeah,
and this one's glued.
So in this one, there's a shot of Mahoney who, when he comes up with the scheme, he holds up a tube of super glue, and that scene was cut from the UK VHS because they thought it would give impressionable young kids sinister ideas of super gluing megaphones to adults' mouths. So I'm thinking that must be what this alternative version is, because there doesn't seem to be any other difference between that and what was on VHS before. So it's a bit of a swizz calling it the alternative version. But there's lots of on this disc. There's lots of deleted scenes actually, which again. You were saying that Sharon Stone looks like she had a lot cut out, and there was. I mean, there's scenes of her flirting with Mahoney. There's a scene where Harris shows up at her house with flowers, and her dog attacks him. You were talking about the skateboarding. There's a great scene where Mahoney is showing off some neat skateboard moves to impress Kyle and Arnie, and you can tell it's Tony Hawk's or one of the skateboarding superstars are doing it. A big thumbs up for me for Police Academy 4. As I said, I think this marks the end of an era, this movie. Would you agree?
Oh, it definitely marks the end of an era for sure. I think, 87 in general marks the end of an era. It was like 1987 was the most 80s, you can get. I felt like it was like very heightened 80s. And then like certain things definitely changed after this for the series and for different other things. It still remained a hit at the box office. It was a big drop, I guess. 28 million at the box office and 76 worldwide. The budget was a little bit higher. There's definitely more stunts in this one, so that's probably why the budget was a little bit higher. But it certainly made money for Warner Brothers, and they were like, "We're not going to stop yet. We're going to milk some more money out." And so,
they have that big action scene at the end, which probably cost a pretty penny with all the biplanes and hot air balloons.
Right. It definitely has a lot of production value, this one, which is interesting to see by this 4. Maybe that was maybe they're in their minds, they're like, we'll go out on a big, on a bang, right? They were thinking this is probably their last one. But no, Warner Bros. is like, nope, do another one. And so they came up with this.
They're back.
Come on in and register.
Jones. Hightower. Hooks.
Back off, you turkey!
Callahan.
Eyes left.
House.
Why, this old baby, it doesn't even break, it pulverizes.
Tackleberry. Proctor. Harris. And Commandant Lazard. Their assignment? Miami Beach. And they're beside themselves with excitement.
Get ready for Erik Lazard.
This time, instead of making arrests, they're going to take one.
He's thinking.
But when ruthless criminals kidnap Lazard, his loyal force put their vacation on hold and become bent on revenge. Once they spring into action, man for man, tan for tan.
Hello, Dork.
They're the hottest force on the surf and sand, and they'll do whatever it takes, no matter how much it hurts.
Shark! Help!
Police Academy 5.
Leave the swimming area now, mister!
It's the best in fun and guns under the sun.
Okay, so Police Academy 5, Assignment Miami Beach. Now, this one has quite a different feel to the others for me. There's a change of location, and there's the loss of some some really key characters. Mahoney and Zed, and also Sweet Chuck is gone at this stage. So they're obvious factors. But also, structurally, this goes for, dare I say it, a slightly more narrative-based approach.
Mm-hmm.
In previous entries, the bad guys are kind of tacked on at the end for that action sequence, as I was mentioning. It's sort of arriving out of nowhere to set up a final chase scene. And the bulk of the film focuses on the antics within the police academy, and that. But here, the bad guys are actually main characters, and they're very much at the forefront. For me, the more obvious approach with the loss of Mahoney and Zed would have been to promote someone like Hightower, Hooks, Tackleberry, or Jones into the lead. But instead, it's kind of Harris and Proctor versus Lazard versus the baddies is kind of the structure of the film. So it's kind of much more of a crime caper, I suppose, this time around, with stolen diamonds, giving it kind of a 1960s family crime comedy feel. But for me, there's definitely less laughs in this one. The absence of Gutenberg and Goldthwait, they just leave a gaping hole that no one can fill, unfortunately. Although the script doesn't really give anyone anything terribly funny to say or do anyway. Having said that, there's something breezy and lightweight and inoffensive that makes this sort of mildly comforting to watch. I'd been quite familiar with the first 4 films in the franchise for many years, but 5, 6, and 7 I've only seen a handful of times, I would say, maybe once or twice each. 5 has a nostalgia appeal that kind of clouds my judgment. Because I'm aware that it's a huge drop in quality from the first 4, but watching it, especially during lockdown, it has its escapist charms. It's kind of unpretentious, and it's attempting to create something joyful. I just don't think it's all that funny, but I do find it quite cozy. Now, this was the last one that I saw. I kind of gave up after this one. It was years later that I saw parts 6 and 7, and I'll talk about that when we get to them. So there's the nostalgia appeal of 5 makes it kind of slightly more palatable for me than it would if I'd only just watched it for the first time in the last month. Again, in this one, the pranks on Harris are probably the highlight, although they're just not as good as in previous entries. He gets dork written into his chest using sunblock at one stage, and his straw hat is set alight, as he's trying to flirt with a young lady in a bar. I mean, it's not exactly Shakespeare. There's, I suppose, a tiny bit of a chuckle to be had when Tackleberry tackles the shark with the gun, forcing it to do an about turn and swim away. I mean, it's awful, but I think it crosses the line from being so stupidly unfunny to being slightly funny. It's hard to describe. So, even by the series standards, this one is more or less laugh-free for me, I'm afraid. And it's definitely targeted at an even younger audience than parts 3 and 4 were. It's kind of a Saturday morning cartoon caper approach with pantomime villains. So for me, I suppose it's a big downturn from the first 4, and I think it really is all down to the loss of Steve Gutenberg and Bobcat Goldthwait. For me, they really are sorely missed in this, but also the approach they take. You can see they're aiming younger and younger with each sequel, and it's just not working anymore for me, I'm afraid. What are your thoughts on Assignment Miami Beach?
Assignment Miami Beach. Let's see. When I saw this in the theater in 1988, this came out March 18th. These were always like spring releases. So March 18th, 1988, 1 year later after the first one, or after the previous one. I was let down. I thought it wasn't as good. I was like, oh, this is a big drop. This is where it ends, right? They should have stopped at 4 and not continue with the series without Steve Gutenberg, without the characters that they set up in the previous movies, like not having Zed and Sweet Chuck and having that relationship and that antagonist kind of thing going on. It loses a lot, and I don't know. I was like a chore to watch this one, I think, on home video. So I just watched it maybe once on home video, and then that was it. So we're revisiting it for the podcast, watching this Blu-ray set. I was watching it, and I'm like, you know what? This movie, I'm kind of enjoying this movie, even though it's pretty slight. It's definitely nothing. It doesn't add a lot to anything new to the series, really. It's kind of it does heighten, like you said, the story element and having bad guys throughout the film and having the idea of diamonds and jewels and smuggling and all that stuff. It doesn't quite, it's kind of thrown in there, really, just to have a plot. It just doesn't quite work, but I don't know. I was enjoying it because it was fluff, and since the world has gone mad in 2020, I'm like, oh, this is like so harmless that it's enjoyable in its own way. I was into it. I think I had more fun with this movie in the second half than the first half. I did like some of the stuff in the first half. I like when they hold stuff in the airport with Lassard and the golf balls and all the hijinks with that and the setup. Rene Auberjonois is the lead bad guy. I thought that he was kind of funny. Seeing him play trying to play like an ethnic kind of character. I think they were trying to say they were like Italian, but not quite. It was silly, but childish and certainly PG-ish. But I was enjoying it. I don't know. I liked all the set pieces towards the end of the film, like when all the stuff on the Everglades in those boats that they were using. I thought that was kind of fun. There's a lot of action in that second half. So it's not boring, it's not a boring film, but you do miss Gutenberg, you do miss Zed and some of the others. But you get some of the other, you get maybe Callahan has a little bit more of a character, I guess, a little more action. There's a lot more action for them to do in this one, I guess. And certainly maybe not character stuff, but more action. And I guess that was true of the time period. Like things were gearing up more actiony in the 1988. Certainly the year of when there's Die Hard and Lethal Weapons and all that stuff. So it was a very actiony time, and they amped up the action in this one. And it's silly, like that scene you mentioned with Tackleberry pulling the gun on the shark. I thought it was kind of funny in a way. It doesn't quite. It goes into another. I don't know. There's a certain comedy that just doesn't work, but that kind of worked for me for some reason because it's so absurd. And I don't know. I had fun with this one. I was kind of surprised that I did. I remember seeing it in the theater along with Vice Versa. And the only thing I remember about that double feature, I remember enjoying Vice Versa much more, was that Corinne Bohrer from Part 4 was the love interest in Vice Versa. It's like, oh, she's back, but in a better movie. She's in Vice Versa. I'm not sure if Vice Versa holds up. I haven't seen that well, but I remember being charmed by that one. That's the body swap movie with Judge Reinhold and the kid from The Wonder Years, Fred Savage. And I like seeing her, so it was fun. In a world gone mad, I would give it a thumbs up. Even though it's definitely nowhere near on the level as the previous films. And that definitely reflects, and this is definitely fatigue for the series for sure. Box office wise, it made $19 million and $54 million worldwide. So it's making a fraction of what the other films were making. And the budget was, I think lower than Part 4 somehow. I don't know. They lowered the budget. Maybe they were not paying. They certainly weren't paying Steve Guttenberg salary. I think Zed. I think they were paying a lot of money to Bobcat Goldthwait. If I remember correctly, somewhere on either a documentary or somewhere I read it somewhere that he negotiated something like $600,000 salary on one of the movies. And he also negotiated that Sweet Chuck, the actor who plays Sweet Chuck, could also get the same exact amount of money as he does, because he felt that his character was so integral to his that they should make the same amount of money. Yeah. So when I read that or heard that, I was like, oh, Bobcat Goldthwait is the stand-up guy. He was, he's looking out for an actor who probably would have gotten paid a lot less. But he knew that they relied so heavily on each other as actors, which was great. So yeah, they were paying less money to the cast at this point probably, and but they had some big set pieces. So it doesn't seem like they skimped too much on certain things.
No, the action at the end is good on the Everglades. Yeah.
I enjoyed that part of it, and you see Bubble Smith wrestle an alligator. I think he was also another character. I think he also got paid really well in these movies. He was always billed like number 2 in these movies, and I think this one he might have even billed number 1 because Steve Guttenberg was done with the series. So he probably got a bump in pay, which is great. But yeah, it was kind of over for me with the series, even though they made 2 more. Here's.
I was saying, you asked me at the start what the theatrical history was over here for these films, and I kind of thought that only the first 4 were released into cinemas, but actually all 7 were released to cinemas. I think.
Oh, really?
parts 5, 6, and 7 maybe were more limited, but they certainly did get theatrical releases, because I can see BBFC certificates for them here for their theatrical release, and also there's UK cinema posters for all 7. So, but by the time Assignment Miami Beach rolled around, it certainly didn't make it to my neck of the woods. I had to wait for the VHS to come out. Yeah,
I guess maybe because they did well in the East Coast, so they probably why they had it. It was kind of still doing well enough, so that's probably why it was so easily accessible for me. But again, it played up the block for me, and now and then 1 year later they had another one. Here it is.
An evil crime lord is getting inside information.
We've suspected that there was a leak in this precinct.
It could be anyone. Making us look like a bunch of fools.
Damn Matt.
Hightower. Hooks.
You can pick it up at the police impound yard. Boy!
Callahan. Tackleberry.
You'll take the bus and like it now, mister!
Jones.
Target human.
Backler.
Hey!
Harris.
Make my Christmas.
Or Commandant Lazard.
I know we shall soon triumph over our enemies.
They love their work. And it shows. When it comes to in-flight service and on-the-job safety.
I have just the men for the job.
They're the biggest wheels around.
That was very exciting, wasn't it?
Police Academy 6, City Under Siege.
Okay, that's Police Academy 6, City Under Siege. This is a movie I've seen once in my life. And I don't know. It doesn't quite work for me. This is where it focuses on a crime wave, and there's this hidden figure who's organizing crime in the city, and I don't even know what this movie is really about, to be honest. It doesn't quite gel for me as a movie. It's I just wasn't that into it when watching it this time. I mean, I thought there was some fun elements, I guess. I like seeing Garrett Graham, and there's more is there jewel thieves in this one too? I feel like there was no. Yeah, there's a lot. I don't know why they're returning with the jewel thief thing again, but whatever. I like seeing Michael Winslow. He actually gets to do a stand-up routine in this movie. They're like, by this point, we might as well just have him do a set, and he literally is doing a set on stage in front of an audience. I liked him as the robot cop, clearly a homage to RoboCop later in the film. Trying to focus on the good things, guys. Happy Birthday to Me Scooby-Doo ending. I like that. Yep. So stupid.
I have both of those references written down for the ending here as well.
Sort of like a giallo bad guy. I mean, like a hidden figure in shadows and wearing some sort of I don't know, raincoat and hat. I don't know. It was just very strange. I like that it was directed by someone named Peter Boners. I thought that was funny. I think that's probably the biggest laugh was maybe the title card of Peter Boners when I saw it in the theater. And I don't know. That's where it ends for me. Those are maybe the positives that I took away. These are those notes that I wrote down. That's all I kind of remember from it while watching it. I've seen it maybe a couple of times now, on watching it for this podcast, and it just doesn't really quite work as a movie. It feels a bit, I don't know, thrown together maybe. I don't know. Just doesn't quite. Matt McCoy, who was in the 5th movie, is kind of like the substitute Steve Guttenberg. I never quite liked that character.
No, I agree.
And so he's here. He's again the lead, and I guess the lead, and it just didn't really work. You're definitely missing really missing Steve Guttenberg. You're really missing like some of the characters who were cut from the previous movies. Even though you have like Harris and Lassard and Callahan and Hooks and Jones, they're all there, and Tackleberry, but Hightower, they're just, I don't know. They don't register as much to me. Not a lot of this movie registers to me, so it's definitely a sign of bad writing, bad directing, and I certainly don't fault the actors. I'm sure they were giving it their all. I just don't think the material was very good, so not a fan. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's pretty much a laugh-free zone for this one again. Again, as you said, it seems aimed squarely at a much younger audience. Now, I can watch kids' movies quite happily, but this type of one, no, I just get mind-numbingly bored. You know, this is very much aimed at the under 10 market also, which is really odd as it's only 5 years since the original R-rated first film came out.
Yeah, that's
now, I did enjoy elements of the finale, the final 20 minutes, but I found the first hour of the film to be a real chore. As you're saying, Matt McCoy is kind of promoted to the sort of central good guy character, the substitute Mahoney, and I just find his character just really flat. And as I was saying earlier, I'm sure that like Hooks, Hightower, Tackleberry must be really miffed that this character is brought in for part 5, and then suddenly he's kind of above them in the pecking order. Just the film just feels really lifeless to me, and there were only 3 real highlights, and I think they're all the ones you mentioned. 2 of them are courtesy of Michael Winslow. One is him doing his Jimi Hendrix impression during that stand-up routine, which I thought was terrific. And the other is where he pretends to be the robot, which I thought was really good fun as well. You know, he finds some old scrap electronic parts and puts them underneath his jacket, and it makes it look like he's a malfunctioning robot. I thought that was good fun. And you know, again, I didn't see this one when it came out because I thought part 5 was such a letdown that I didn't see part 6 until I bought the first of my 2 box sets back in 2012. So I have no real nostalgic attachment to this one, so I can view it much more objectively this time, and it's just not good. It's a film aimed at the Barney crowd, and it has a paltry running time of 80 minutes, but I just found it really dragged.
It's true.
You know, like in part 5, you know, it switches between the cops and the bumbling thieves throughout the movie, you know, and it made me yearn for the structure of the first 4 films, where it was kind of focused on the cops only and their interactions and Harris versus Mahoney and that type of thing. But just the villains in part 6 and in part 5, I suppose, are just too cartoonish and they're too kids TV-ish for me, and that makes them kind of boring to watch. And the gags on Harris in this one aren't as funny. He gets splattered with paint after taking a ridged batch of money out of a bank, which isn't terribly hilarious, and then he gets his arse glued to a plastic chair, and it just feels like the stakes have diminished. I mean, they've run out of ideas completely, and they've just gone for real throwaway ideas of how to prank Harris in this one. There's a rap interlude in this one as well with Melly Mel, and he's joined on stage by Hooks and Hightower, which is kind of cringy. The third thing about the film that I liked, apart from those 2 things with Michael Winslow, was I suppose the finale with the cherry picker and the monster truck. I think that's quite well staged. You know, it's a decent action sequence, and I really enjoyed. Sorry, there's a 4th thing I liked. I did enjoy the latex mask ripping in the finale, which I have written here is pure Scooby-Doo, or indeed Happy Birthday to Me, which is exactly what you said. Although the identity of the Kingpin was kind of obvious, I suppose. But you know, all of that stuff that happens in the last 20 minutes can't make up for how awful the first 60 minutes were. And I'm not really surprised that this one underperformed at the box office and kind of sounded the death knell for the series. It went on a 5-year hiatus after this, and I can kind of understand why. I mean, it's not an award-winning series of films by any means, but those first 4 had something, and they stuck to a formula that we liked. And then from part 5 onwards, they aimed it very young, and it just nosedived for me. So I found this film quite dreary, but there were bits in the last 20 minutes or so that I did enjoy.
Yeah, it wasn't a total wash. I mean, I'm glad I watched it again for the podcast, just to get a context of this series and seeing Michael Winslow. I think really this really brings home maybe they should have centered the movie around him more, and it would have been a better film. Maybe he should have been the lead. He should have been the Mahoney, right? When Mahoney left, Michael Winslow should have been graduated as the lead, a proper lead. I think it's an ensemble. It's always been an ensemble, but it just doesn't quite come across as well in this one. And I think again, bad writing, bad directing. Peter Boner's really left me down. He really let me down on this
I hate
one.
when boners let you down.
Speaking of boners, I saw this with at the Marlboro Theater again, up the block from where I lived, with Skin Deep.
Yes,
the Blake Edwards glow-in-the-dark condom movie. So that was much better.
There's more to the film than glow-in-the-dark condoms, but that's precisely what's remembered for.
That's what it was sold as, and I really like that movie, and that one really holds up for me. I think it's a good, even though he's like a chauvinist and sexist character, again, maybe Me Too kind of character, but in that movie, John Ritter, but he's John Ritter, so he makes it lovable in a way.
Yeah.
And there's some really funny stuff in that movie. Certainly much funnier than Police Academy 6. Yeah, Fatigue for sure set in. It made $11 million at the American box office, 33 worldwide, and the budget was around $14 million. So similar to Police Academy 5 in terms of budget, but box office way lower. And that's when they should have said, okay, yeah, maybe we should stop. And they did. Yeah. They stopped for 5 years. I think part of the problem, they were trying to develop sequels every year, and I'm I think there was in talks somewhere in the late 80s to do a movie in Russia, but they couldn't get the clearance to do a movie in Russia. But in 1994, they finally got the clearance to make a movie in Russia. I don't know why they really had to make a movie in Russia, but they certainly wanted to, and they did. And this is what they came up with.
After half a century of opposition, the two largest world powers have finally begun working together. But now, just when we thought the Cold War was over, leave it to these guys to heat it up again.
May I kiss you again? No, you may not.
Police Academy, mission to Moscow.
To kick many, many butskis.
Those fearless spies from the Force are together again on a mission of peace and understanding. Because the Academy's finest will stop at nothing
Amerikansky police.
when it comes to fighting crime.
Do you have proof? Do we have proof?
They're not sitting down on the job.
Machina Boobski.
They're not being taken for a ride. And when it's time to use force, excess is best. They're about to show Russia just how ugly Americans can get. The Cold War may be over, but give them time. They just got here. Police Academy, mission to Moscow.
We are in deep forest.
Yes, Police Academy, mission to Moscow, a.k.a. Police Academy 7, mission to Moscow. Mm-hmm. Oh, the humanity. You were mentioning there about the franchise running out of steam in 1989 in an attempt to produce sequels every year. And 1989 seemed to be a pivotal year for a lot, like going back to my horror roots, Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, all ground to a halt with their franchises in 1989 with underperforming sequels, and they all went on a hiatus after that. And the same happened to Police Academy, and it came back in 1994 with possibly one of the worst films I have ever seen. I have had to sit through some shite in my time working on the Hysteria Continues, but this ranks certainly as one of the worst films I've ever sat through. It's just not funny at all. It's unbelievably boring, and it's only 79 minutes long on this PAL version I have, and the final 4 minutes are the credits, so it's only 75 minutes to sit through, but it drags at a snail's pace. It is just so horrendous. I'm not sure about the idea of taking the recruits to Moscow, what the impetus behind that was. I mean, I know they were trying to get the recruits to England at one stage, but those plans fell by the wayside. But I don't know why they needed to take them to Moscow. Was there a big passion in the US to see films set in Russia? I don't know. I mean, at the start, I was kind of intrigued. I mean, again, I didn't see this film at the time. I didn't really know a huge amount about it until I saw it, about 8 years ago. And I had no idea that it starred Ron Perlman and Christopher Lee. So when I saw them appear in the early stages, I was like, oh, this could be a proper, legitimate attempt to revive the franchise. But, oh my God, how on earth did those two get involved in this stinker? I mean, Christopher Lee has been attached to some dreadful movies, but I thought Ron Perlman would have, even at this stage early in his career, would have had better taste and been, had better sense than to get involved in this. Okay, so an example of the humor at play here. In one scene, they're trying to crack open a safe, and Tackleberry is all for shooting the lock, but Jones says, no, they need to make it look like that nobody has been here. So he comes up with the idea of just making the noises of a combination lock, and hey presto, the safe pops open. And it's just not funny, and it makes no sense. It's like, what? The one bit in it that I found slightly amusing was there's a scientist who claims she can tell a person's characteristics by just a strand of their hair. So in this case, Cadet Connors, played by, I think it's Charlie Schlatter, is it? She deduces that he's a picky eater, he's afraid of heights, and he's a virgin. And I mean, that's not even that hilarious, but that's as funny as it gets in this film. Wow. It reminded me of one of those sitcoms where they take the main cast off to another country, like when Friends went to London and that type of thing. So it has all the usual cliches. So they've got to tick all the what do we do in Moscow boxes. So they go to the Russian circus and the Bolshoi ballet, and all the Russians tend to shout rather than speak. And we do get to hear Harris say, "Movski, movski, movski," because of course his catchphrase up until this point has been "move it, move it, move it." So it's just box ticking. It's like, let's go and catch all the landmarks of Moscow and cram them into this movie somehow. It's one attempt to update the franchise to the 90s, is to have the central MacGuffin to be this computer game for an unspecified device, which looks like a Game Boy. I think it is actually a Nintendo Game Boy. So it gives you a once-in-a-lifetime chance to see Christopher Lee playing with a Game Boy, which is not something you see in any of his other movies. But like I was saying, the humor was targeted at a younger audience, in parts 5 and 6. But here, it's aimed so young and so low. I mean, this film will have, from what I can see, virtually no appeal to anyone over the age of 8. It's like, I'm a really immature 46-year-old, but even I couldn't raise a smirk at this awfulness, this atrocity. I mean, a lot of the time there are punchlines with no setup, and the film feels like, for a film that was, I don't know if it was 5 years in development, but they had 5 years to work on this film. It just seems such a complete mess, and there seems to be a load of ADR in the film also, like dialogue that's been re-recorded or added in after the fact, which made it feel like kind of a Doris Wishman film. And there's tons of comedic sound effects thrown in the background, lots of whizzes and whoops and swanny whistles. So it reminded me of the comedy cops from Halloween 5. So maybe the same sound designers worked on both films, I don't know. And there's a bizarre scene where Harris and Tackleberry find themselves undercover at the ballet as kind of female ballet dancers. And it could have been funny, but I was so just dead behind the eyes at the stage that film came up that I just couldn't muster a smirk of any kind. And the film ends with the least energetic sword fight between Ron Perlman and Commandant Lassard. It's so robotically choreographed and just lacking in any energy. So for me, this is by quite some distance the worst film in the franchise, and certainly one of the worst films I've ever seen. It makes 5 and 6 look like classics next to this one. I mean, I just found it to be hideous, and it really struggled to hold my attention. I watched it twice for the podcast, and both times I just struggled so much. It was such a chore.
Oh, I had the same problem. I could not get through this movie. It was so hard. so hard to watch this movie. I don't know what it was. It's just so bad. It just doesn't work at all. Just the central idea of it doesn't work. The characters don't seem to be given a lot to do. I mean, there's only how many are left from the original series? There's only Sarge, Jones, Tackleberry, Callahan, and Harris.
Hightower.
No, Hightower's not in this one.
Oh, is he not?
Even Hightower is like, nope, I'm not going to Russia.
Okay, I've forgotten that bit.
Yeah.
So Hooks in it.
What's that? And Hooks is not in it either.
Oh, okay.
So it's really like 5 of the original cast. Like, yeah, okay, we'll do it. That's it. They couldn't even get Matt McCoy back. It's so bad. It's such a bad movie. I can't stand this movie. It was hard to watch. It felt like such a chore sitting through it, and that I had to like just move away from the screen. I just could not, and then go back to it and try again. And it was like 2 or 3 like moments like that where I just like had to like just walk away, like maybe later, and then it just never quite came together, never quite worked at all, and I'd never laughed. I just thought it was a chore. And yeah, I was surprised how much I did not like this movie. And it's sad to end the series on a down note, but that's where it went with 6 and 7. Certainly 7, much worse. I couldn't believe this was directed by Alan Metter, who made some fun movies. He made Back to School.
I know.
Girls Just Want to Have Fun and Moving. All fun movies, especially Back to School. And so I'm surprised that he couldn't muster up something. So there must have been something that happened in this movie in post-production. I don't know. There's no real history. Certainly, they're working on a documentary right now called What an Institution, The Story of Police Academy. Hopefully they'll highlight what really went wrong with 7. Certainly the script must have been the thing, and so I can't imagine when Christopher Lee and Ron Perlman read the script like, oh, we have to do this movie. I don't know. Maybe they were lured by other factors. Who knows?
Yes, blackmail. Yeah.
But yeah, it's just an embarrassment. So it's sad that it went there, but it did. What can you do? But we still have the other films to highlight, to watch. This one, yeah, I think it was barely released. I never saw it in theaters. I never saw it on video. I didn't see it. I avoided it until this podcast. And I was lucky for 25 years to not see this movie. My luck ran out in 2020. I watched Police Academy 7.
It's not. Is it the worst thing about 2020? Having to sit through Mission and put to Moscow?
Well, it's on the list.
Yeah.
It's on the list. There was also, like, besides 7, there was a series that they launched in 1997, which I never saw, because I was so turned off to these films. Like 6 turned me off to these movies for sure. So that's why I didn't bother watching 7. Didn't bother watching the series. And there was an animated series which I might have watched back in the late 80s. I just don't remember much about. I don't think they used the voices, so that was not. Yeah, there's no real reason to watch.
Well, I'm guessing the animated series is probably what prompted them to target it towards a younger audience from Part 5 onwards.
Yeah,
maybe to
tie
sense. The two together more closely.
Yeah, that totally makes sense because kids were watching these movies on home video. Certainly, they were watching them when they were on TV all the time. I feel like, yeah, it's like we mentioned 2 was on TV a lot, 4 was on TV a lot. I don't think 5 and 6 and certainly 7 I didn't see much show up because, probably on cable, but not on regular TV here in the U.S. Not a fan of the later films, but yeah, there's a lot of good stuff for the first 4 films, certainly.
So what you said to me yesterday before we recorded that you had a surprise for me that one of the later films you really enjoyed. Now, I thought it might have been 6, but it turned out to be 5.
It was 5, yeah. I thought because I definitely enjoyed 5 a lot more than I thought I would. I thought I was going to really like to start disliking the series after 4, and that's true after 5. But I enjoyed 5, just not as much as the first 4. So a little tricky there.
Yes.
Maybe I'll go back and watch 7 again and really enjoy it.
No, don't do it.
Nope. Won't do it. Not going to do it.
There are a lot of things I would do ahead of ever watching Mission to Moscow ever again.
We still need to finish the last 4 months of this year. So I can't
Yeah, I know.
I can't do that to myself. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that documentary when it comes out.
Me too. Yeah,
that will be fun just to see the making of these films and hear the stories and see some of the cast. They got a lot of the main people from these films and surviving castmates and production people on that documentary. There's like a 10-minute tease of it on YouTube.
Okay.
So, yeah,
because they're on the DVD box set, and I think you got the Blu-ray box set. I think they're kind of similar. There's, apart from part one, the extras are kind of scant. I mean, there might be an 8 to 10 minute featurette on each one, where it doesn't go into any huge depth, but still, I appreciate them. I was listening to the commentary on part one yesterday, and Steve Guttenberg is on it actually, but he's very subdued. He doesn't have a huge amount to say.
Let's talk about Steve Guttenberg before we end. Like, he had quite a career in the 80s. He started with like Can't Stop the Music, which is not for everyone, but I enjoy it.
Excellent.
Diner, and then Man Who Wasn't There, which I hadn't seen since it came out in theaters. I wonder how that holds up. The day
3D,
after,
wasn't it? Yeah.
Yes, it was 3D. I was on a craze of the 3D movies in the 80s, and I saw that one. The Day After, that TV movie, which devastated me and devastated everyone else who's seen it. Cocoon. I mean, Cocoon was a big movie, and Bad Medicine wasn't quite a good movie for him, but it had its moments. Short Circuit was certainly
love Short Circuit. I love Short Circuit.
Yeah, I'm a big Short Circuit fan, and even Short Circuit 2 to some degree, even though he's not in it. Bedroom Window was his attempt at doing like a serious thriller. Amazon Women on the Moon, he shows up in that. He shows up in a Sally Field, Michael Caine romance called Surrender. I haven't seen that since the 80s. Then he was in the big hit 3 Men and a Baby.
Yep.
High Spirits, which was a fun movie. Cocoon 2.
Filmed in Ireland, I believe.
Filmed in Ireland, that's right.
Yep.
With Peter O'Toole. Cocoon 2, which I seemed to watch a lot for some reason back in the late 80s. So yeah, he had quite a career. And then I think towards the end there, he did The Boyfriend School, which is also known as Don't Tell Her It's Me. And 3 Men and a Little Lady. And then it kind of went off the rails a bit for him, sadly. But he was doing all those movies in addition to like doing a Police Academy movie every year. So he was working a lot, and he's dependable.
He's a face of the 80s.
Definitely,
I would say.
Yeah, when you think of the 80s, you think of Steve Guttenberg for sure. And
one in the oven.
One in the oven. We all need one in the oven.
How would you rank them before we end
I
up?
didn't think of that. I would go 1.
Yeah.
4.
Yeah.
3. 5. 2. 6.
Ooh.
7.
You'd rank 5 above 2. I would go probably 1, 4, 3, 2, 5, 6, 7. 5, 6. ... infinity, and then 7.
Totally. Let's pretend like if you guys are out there going to do a Police Academy marathon after this, and I do think you should just leave off 7. Pretend it doesn't exist. I think you might be. You might be.
It would like sour the experience.
If you want to even leave off 6, go ahead. It's okay. We won't mind.
Just watch the trailer because it has the best bit of RoboCop in it. So.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, definitely watch that part of it, and the Winslow routine was fun. But yeah, again, this was fun taking this Police Academy journey with you. As PC as it was, these films, they're very PC. They're very of the moment. I'm glad we could watch them together.
I do. I still get a nostalgic kick out of those first 4.
Yeah, they hold up for me too. I agree. All right, guys. Thank you for supporting Patreon. Thank you for taking us on this journey. Look out for Erik on the Hysteria Continues podcast. He's got some fun upcoming episodes.
You'll be joining us on one soon, I believe.
Yeah, that would be great. I'm looking forward to that. And we won't say which ones they are yet.
No.
but they're out there. They'll be out there hopefully soon, and you could see Erik in Nothing Underneath soon. And you can look out for my other podcast, The Last American Video Store, hopefully getting another episode together, and the Retro Movie Love podcast, the regular episode. We have a new episode, Apartment Horror. So thank you guys so much. Look out for us on Facebook and all the socials and Instagram, all that good stuff. And talk to you soon. Thanks again, Erik.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care. Ciao for now.
There's a new kind of heat that's walking the beat. Citizens on patrol, cause the neighborhood folks won't take no more. They got bars on the windows, locks on the doors. Clean the streets is what they'll do. They're gonna get rid of all the punks like you. They're citizens on patrol. Citizens on patrol. Citizens on patrol. Citizens on patrol. We got crashers, smashers, even head bashers, punks, drunks, all kinds of fun. There's a mugger in an alley and a junkie named Sally. So you better go home. We won't leave you alone. We're citizens on patrol. So you call the cops, they won't do no good, cause they won't even come through this neighborhood. Before we get this crime to stop, we got to grab the cops from the donut shops. Citizens on patrol. Citizens on patrol. No, man, just go on.
Yeah, who's gonna tell me?
Bubba.
Yeah, who's he?
Hey, baby, move it.
You got it. Thanks, Bubba.
All right, baby. Yeah, I'm on jam.
Go ahead, Bubba.
I'm on jam. Citizen on patrol, baby.
That's all right, Bubba. Yeah. Yo, Stevie, come on, man.
prints out of here. It's supposed to be on the other record. Yeah, I know, man.
What are these people doing here?
Yo, man, everybody's here. Hey, Jimmy, what's happening? Does your house get robbed? Vacation place when you're on the job. Do you feel real dumb because you're a working slot? You need citizens on patrol. Citizens on patrol. Citizens on patrol. Citizens on patrol. Citizens on patrol.
Okay, Mahoney, get going. On the double, move it, move it, move it.